Like, no one's expecting you to have everything together. We know that behind that brand is me.
Welcome to Confessions of a Social Media Manager with me, Erin from Agora Pulse. Today I have with me Jackie Barker. Jackie is the social media lead for Canva. Now, the people listening, do they really need an introduction to Canva? I don't think so. But for those of you who really don't know what Canva is, it's a graphic design platform used to create everything from social media graphics, presentations, posters, documents, GIFs, and even video. So that's basically everything. With preset templates and the ability to create from scratch, the platform is free to use and offers paid subscriptions for enhanced features. The company was founded in Australia in 2013. Jackie is a social media marketer through and through. Her career started in the Midlands, working at some of Birmingham's most prominent digital marketing agencies, rising the ranks from junior account exec to social media manager within 3 years. A move to Australia saw her work in social media carry on further at digital marketing agencies based in Sydney. Then Canva came calling in 2018. She started, of course, as a social media manager, responsible for the channel's end-to-end social media and community management output, doing everything from strategy to execution. She then became head of community, which saw Canva go more global. Under her watch, she expanded the social media team from 60 to 30 and led on community content and education programs for the brand. As of May 2021, she became Canva's social media lead, which makes her in charge of Canva's B2B employer brand strategy. Canva has a global following of 2.5 million across all their social channels, and Jackie was integral to making that happen. When asked to describe her social media career in 3 words, she said, "A wild ride." Welcome, Jackie!
Hello, thank you for having me.
Canva is... Find me a day where a social media manager does not mention Canva.
I know. It's like when I saw this job, I was like, that has to be mine because I love Canva. I've used it all of my career as well. It's amazing.
Yeah, so it's just going to be so brilliant just talk to you about how you have grown Canva to what it is now. I remember the first time I used Canva was in the heady days of 2016 as digital assistant, and seeing what it's gone from then to now has just been amazing. So it'd be really great to hear what you've been doing. Could you go a bit more into detail about what your role is as a social media lead at Canva?
We all kind of have different areas of responsibility. So there's obviously different audiences. You have consumer, it's B2B, and employer brand. So I'm responsible for really owning that global growth of the B2B and employer brand social media strategy. So looking at how we, set up the global foundations, but then also thinking about how we're going to scale that across local markets as well. And it's quite a new area for Canva as well. We haven't done a lot of work actually of promoting Canva's culture, which I know seems strange because a lot of people do associate Canva with its culture, but really there's a lot more work to do to really amplify that and get that message out into the world. And similarly with the B2B area, we really want to, help support workplaces to use Canva because we've got a lot of people using it, content creators, social media managers, but how can we start to think about the different ways that Canva can be used in the workplace? And, with COVID and everything that happened, adapting to a virtual world, Canva has been kind of an integral part of that. So I'm really looking to amplify that through social media and building a team as well to make that happen across the world.
That's brilliant. I will hasten to add to people listening and watching that Canva is integrated into Agora Post. You can use it within Agora Post.
Right.
Your journey in social media has gone from, the person writing the post to leading global strategies. You've clearly learnt a lot along the way. What would be the first piece of advice you would give somebody who was starting their career in social media?
Embrace the change. It's my favorite saying. And I think it adapts to like 2 different sides. It adapts to your career path and growing your career path, but also to social media as a platform. And I think we all know, right? Social media evolves all the time. You never know what's going to happen next, really. A platform can start. I'm going to give LinkedIn stories, for example, and then it can disappear. So you can build a whole strategy around a platform that might not even exist past 6 months. Or, on the flip side, there's a new channel that launches tomorrow that's going to take off. If you think about TikTok, 2 years ago, we wouldn't have been even talking about TikTok as a platform. So really in this industry, the only thing you can count on is that things will change. And if you aren't willing to adapt and embrace that, your social strategy is never really going to fly. So for me, it's really about thinking, what can I do in this situation to capitalize on all of the change that is happening? And I think as a social media person, that's got to be something that you thrive in. And we're actually not built, and this is one of the things that I've learned, to really love change. We actually like to have control over situations, like processes, systems in place. It's just a natural way that humans are. But realistically, you have to learn that you have to fail. You're going to have to fail all the time in social media, and getting really used to that being a part of your role and being resilient to get back up and try new things again and again. So yeah, my biggest thing would be open to change and learn to love change, because you get to learn a lot with change, and you get to have a lot more opportunities when you're willing to take that first step and that big risk as well.
That's brilliant advice. Now, you're doing a lot at Canva. You've already been giving a hint of that. What is a typical day like for you?
Typical day. Is there a typical day? That's a good question. So I think like Canva is changing and growing so much that, I mean, day to day, things are quite different. We don't have kind of like regular processes necessarily yet that are in place, because we're still growing, and we're growing very quickly. When I joined Canva, there was 250 people. There's now around 1,500. So like in that context, it's really, every day is slightly different, because we're continually learning new processes to implement for social media that are going to help us get to the next stage. But there's obviously some basics, that like every social media manager needs to be doing. And it depends what we've got on at the time. So say, for example, if there's a campaign on, we'll be doing a lot of like research and insights into our audience. So really trying to get an understanding of their motivations, their behaviors, and then tying that back into, the campaign theme. So what's going on in culture, what's happening in the world, and then being able to pull kind of those threads together to come up with a real strong campaign message, and then really starting to flesh out how that will roll out across all of our different channels as well. So what is the content ecosystem going to look like across all of those different channels? And then also, we spend a lot of time also thinking about what we're going to be doing next. So we're doing a lot at the moment in terms of like our planning, looking at our seasonal plans. So like what's going to be coming next for summer, which is in Australia, it's going to be summer next. But thinking about what's our, our summer overview, our content plan going to look like for that month, and how can we, maximize the other channels that we've got as well. So how can we maximize our presence through email, through our communities? So really trying to collaborate across the different teams. And I think that's one thing, the power of social media is through that collaboration. So trying to maximize the other channels that you have available to you as well to spur your growth. So we do, I'm spending a lot of time in meetings with different key stakeholders to really, pitch forward to social media, how it can support the business, and then looking for opportunities where social media can fit into the wider marketing mix to really give it its opportunity to shine. And then I also am lucky to coach a few people at the moment. So really like thinking about supporting the team. And we have some regular cadences in place. Like we have a social squad weekly where we catch up and, just chat through the latest trends in social media, check in on the team. How are they feeling? What's been their biggest lessons and learnings this week? And we're constantly having that open forum really so that we can share and learn and connect with each other. And I think, a big part of social media is that learning process, right? So what has worked, what hasn't, what do we need to shift gears on? Do we need to switch this up? So I try and provide an open kind of conversation with the team so that we can actually have those conversations to make our strategy better, and also to check in on their well-being, because it is difficult being in social media sometimes, as we know.
You are really busy as a social media lead at Canva. I want to ask, just natural curiosity, and you've been there since 2018, so I feel like you have enough to say about this. Had Canva always had the aim to be the sort of tool in the arsenal of social media managers? Was that always the goal?
That's a good question. And it's not, I don't think it's been the primary goal for social media managers to use it, but I think it's the nature of the product and the industry. And if you think about both, I think of speed and simplicity. that's what we're trying to achieve, right? So social media moves really, really fast, and you need to get things done really quickly. And I think previously without Canva, there was layers of complexity, right? There was those barriers, having to get a designer on board. And what Canva does is try and make things simpler and easier. So it was just meant to be, like, the fit was just right, because the struggles that social media managers have is like it's really the Canva is the solution to those problems. So I think it was just kind of like a natural, organic process that came together. And I think it's just really the tool that needed to be made. We didn't even know we needed it maybe at the time, but once you discover it, I think it's a tool that then people take to every place they go. I know myself, once I first used Canva, every single job I went to then, it was the tool that I recommended because I knew how easy it was to use. So I think it was just a perfect match, really. And that was like an organic pickup for that industry once it was discovered, and it grew through word of mouth.
That's the way I heard about it. I entered a team and they said, one of the consultants there said, just use Canva. I was like, what is that? And then I learned about it, and I think it's incredible that Canva as a product has generated on word of mouth and respect. And that is a testament to how good the product is. And, you've got people who are just using their own personal brand, using Canva to do their own things, from people working in huge organizations who have Canva as their backup to get things done. So you're working on a lot. Is there anything exciting at the moment that you can tell us that Canva are working on?
For me, this is the most exciting thing, is the employer brand area of Canva and social media, because I feel extremely privileged to work at this company, and everything you read about Canva is true. And I will say that, like, honestly, the culture, the values that we stand for, that is what we live and breathe at Canva. So, there is the priority on well-being, inclusion. It really is at the heart of everything we do. And our values, our 6 core values, they are what we live by. It doesn't matter if it's internal or external. Those values are really at the heart of what we do. So I'm really excited now to be working on being able to showcase that to the world, right? Because we want to make Canva and position Canva as the best place to work, right? It is. I have an easy job, I think, but I've got to, tell the world about it so we can recruit the most amazing talent to come and join us as we grow really quickly. So I think there's a lot that businesses can also learn about, the way Canva works, the way it's set up. And we really want to just externalize that to people so they can learn and be educated on the things that we do to really create this amazing, thriving culture. So for me, this is something that I'm working on now, like really thinking about how we'll roll that out from a global level first, and then how we're going to localize that. And for me, that's a really exciting project to work on, because I think it's just going to make the world a better place, getting all the information and education out there, to be honest.
And with that, what is your stance on organic versus paid on making that happen for you?
So interesting. This is a fact. We have been organic completely this whole time I've been there.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my days, please go on.
We've had a few posts that we maybe boosted. I'd probably count them on my hand in that time. We have, a performance marketing team who look after that, a paid strategy, but from the role that, I've been doing, so all of the content that lives across the social media channels, we've done an organic strategy, and we will start to evolve into paid and really think about our paid boosting strategy. But ultimately, for me, I'm a big fan of organic because you have to work harder. I think with paid, you could have an average piece of content, put money behind it, and it would be seen by your audience, right? You're going to get the views, you're going to get the reach. But realistically, with organic, you're having to do the work. You're really having to understand the audience, right? You're having to continually evolve your practice. Like, what am I doing right? What's not worked? What's my learnings? What's my insights? How can I apply them? And you are constantly doing that to make this content get cut through. And it's been really successful for us. It's hard work, but through that constant conversation about, is this right? What's the data saying? We have been able to develop some really, really strong content series that our audience absolutely love now. And the stats that we're getting probably are better than some paid, results that, I've had before, I know, working on other brands. So I really am a fan of organic just because you have to work harder.
You're doing all this organically. How are you measuring success for this?
So for me, like, the measurement of success of social media is I'm not looking at the vanity metrics. Well, I am. It's nice to see the numbers, but for me, it's really about thinking about the conversation that is happening around your posts, because you could have like 1,000 comments on a post and it all being like complaints, right? And that's not really a measure of success. For me, I get really excited when I see, the Canva love being shared on these posts. But the next level is that our audience start to help each other. So they might be sharing an insight, giving them a bit of support, a pat on the back, like, here's a tip that I've tried. And once you start seeing that in the comments, you're now on a verge of taking an audience to a community. And ultimately the goal of social media, right, is to build a community. It's not just to have an audience. This is when you're starting to see our audience are connecting with each other now. And I think that for me really shows that you are, promoting the right content. The content that you're putting out there is connecting and resonating with people. And they're then being able to find like-minded people to interact with and connect with. And obviously the next stage is, building an actual community, a space to then take these people to, so they can strengthen that relationship even more. But for me, that's what gets me really excited, is when I'm actually starting to see the community connect with each other on the threads that we're, of our posts as well.
You've mentioned the work-life balance and the inclusion and the employer sort of culture at Canva is very important to you, and you said it's great. How do you balance a work-life balance in social media when it never really sleeps?
Yeah, I know. And that is a difficult one. And I think the difficulty is, right, social never sleeps. It's always active. You could be scheduling your post for overnight when you're asleep, right? And you're like, what's going to happen at that point? I think there's always these questions in the back of your mind. What happens if this happens or XYZ happens? And you've really got to think about what can you actually control in these situations, because from my perspective, there is so little in our control, right, with the internet, generally anyway. We can think ahead, put plans and processes in place, which I think is really important. Once the content is out there, there is a lot out of your control in terms of like reception, or if someone's gonna, raise a really big issue and it goes viral, you actually have no power to control that. So really starting to separate what is my responsibility and what am I just going to have to deal with if it happens, and it might not. So, really not thinking about the worst case scenario, but just living in the moment and being like, let's see what happens. And if it happens, being prepared, right? And I think that's the most important thing. Like, what tool, systems and processes are you putting in place, right, in case anything does happen that might need your attention out of hours? That can be crisis alerts, for example, or making sure you've mapped out your escalation plan, or you do a rota with your team on who's going to be responsible at different times of the day. So for me, that was like one thing that really happened, is control. But I also don't think that everyone is in the situation as me, where I have a team now. I know the social media managers out there doing it on their own, and I know how hard that is, right, when you are the sole person responsible for social media. But I think this is my learning here, is you have to set those boundaries, right, and those kind of foundations up front with whoever you're working with, whether it's your company, with your client. It's really outlining from the start, what is your expectation of me and what do I agree to, right? And having a bit of an agreement, right? So say, I'm going to be available these hours. This is what happens outside of this time. So I think really setting those clear foundations, getting that approved by whoever you work with, so that, you're not having to be available 24/7, right? It's like, it's not necessarily realistic. If there's a major problem, yeah, absolutely. You've got that process in place to handle it. But I think, having real clear boundaries and then not getting too caught up in what you can't control and just focusing on what you can control, I think has been something that I've learned. And I think you do learn that as you go through your career. At the start, it's quite hard once you're in like the mix of it all, and you're very excited as well, I think, by everything that's happening. You want to see how your content's performing. But I think it gets to a point where, you realize that balance is so important, because you can easily burn out. And if you're burning out, you can't even do your best work. So actually preventing yourself from getting to that point, I think, is a really important part of social media as well, because you have to protect yourself to be able to create the best content, the big viral campaigns. You need to have the energy to actually be able to do it and invest in that as well.
Absolutely. The thing about boundaries is very important, and often we're not taught how to introduce that chat about boundaries. You've been hired to do a job. You hopefully and assume that they understand the boundaries that are in place for your job. But there are people who work in social who probably do enter places that no one understands the boundaries, or no one's really put that in place. So from what you're saying, it's like having the confidence to say, this is what we need to be doing when I'm not here. This is the kind of cover we need to have. These are the kinds of plans in place, and making that sort of the day dot thing you do when you walk in there probably is the best thing to do to get some sort of semblance of a work-life balance, you'd say.
Yeah, definitely. I think you've got to have the confidence to have those conversations, right, to your point, because otherwise it's not spoken and then you don't know what the expectation is. You need to set like the expectation. If you go in and you are doing like available all hours, a client messages you at 1 a.m. and you're there responding, you've already broke your boundary, right? And you're then setting this level of expectation of, what this relationship is going to be. And I think, we are scared to have the conversations sometimes. And I think when you do have the conversations, people are quite receptive because you're thinking ahead, you're planning, you're being proactive, and you're actually thinking about what's best for the business, what's best for the client, whoever you're working with. So I think it is having the bravery in some sense to just be like, what is your expectation of social media? What do you even think of social media? And how can we best work together? Like, I really want to make social media a success. So let's make sure that we've got the systems, processes, everything in place that we can do a really great job.
You've touched on the fact that in social, there is often a lack of control with things. And with the lack of control can come mistakes. What has been the biggest mistake you've made as a social media manager?
I think this is just a standard one. I can't think of anything like major, but I think everyone has accidentally posted something like on an account when they shouldn't have. Like, you're browsing, right? You've accidentally switched on Instagram. You're in a different account and then you're just having to browse through. It was like accidentally sharing something to a story. I thought it was on my personal account, but I wasn't. But very quickly, I was like, yeah, I got an instant feeling. I just knew. I was like, no, delete, delete. But I personally don't like to take these things too seriously because social media, people need to know there's a human behind the brand, right? And when you think about social media and the reason that people are there, they're there for the purpose to connect with people. They're actually not there to connect with brands. For me, it shows humanness. As long as you can turn a situation around, if you do get caught out and admit to it, and think of a quirky way to just be like, oh, hands up, I'm human, messed up a little bit there. That's how you gain the trust back, right? And you can actually turn a situation around quite easily by being human. Like, no one's expecting you to have everything together. We know that behind that brand is me, like me just sat there on a computer. So I've learned as well not to take those mistakes too seriously, unless you've done, I don't know, something terrible. Obviously, there is sometimes to be concerned. But when you're just doing a little mishap like that and you've called it back, it's like, don't be too hard on yourself, right? We're all human.
You have such a healthy attitude to mistakes, which I can only hope to develop.
It just happens to all of us. And it's the way you come back. If you focus too much on the problem, if I get too caught up in the problem, I'm not going to be in the state of mind to be like, how can I pull this back? So I think it's a good way to get used to it. Because then I'm like, oh, we can turn this around. We can do X, Y, Z and go into problem solving mode, which is what we need to be in those situations, really.
You've mentioned in places the kind of skills that you have drawn on as a social media manager. What do you think are the essential skills for a good social media manager?
For me, one of the most important things is understanding the audience. So having a real interest in people and understanding their motivations, their behaviors, why they're even using social media. And I think, you have to get past the substance level of they want to buy this product from me and start to think about what actual core need your product is serving in their life. If you think about Canva as a product, they're not just going there to design. They're going there to achieve their goals, right? Design is a tool that is allowing them to achieve what they want to. So if you're at work and you want to win a pitch, Canva is a tool that helps you create that pitch to achieve that goal of winning that business. Think about a content creator. so like Canva is a tool that helps you create that TikTok video that goes viral because you want to be, have influence in a certain area. So for me, it's about thinking about the role that your brand, your company plays, but what is the bigger purpose of my audience? And that's how you connect with them and resonate with them. It's not just seeing yourself as a tool, right? It's seeing yourself as a vital part of their experience and the goals that they want to achieve. So that audience understanding piece is like so important to me. And then I think we all know creativity is a huge one. Social media is so competitive, and we are not only competing against other brands now, we're competing against creators. We are living in the creator economy, and the power of social media is within the hands of creators now. It's not in the hands of brands and companies. And you've got to be really creative now with your executions to be able to cut through, amongst all of this amazing creativity that we're seeing on TikTok, for example. So I think really having that creative problem solving mindset and thinking of the most creative but simple way to deliver your message to compete amongst the noise is like really important. And then I think we've touched on this a little bit. I think it is just that resilience, because there are times where the social media world is against you, and you have messed up and you have made your mistakes. But realizing that learning and failing is part of the experience of a successful social media manager. There is no way to cover all bases to get things right every time. You could invest 4 weeks into a campaign and it just doesn't hit the mark. It doesn't hit those KPIs and you're like, oh no. But as long as you learn from that, as long as you sit down and be like, okay, what happened here? What do we think we could have done better? What are the insights? What are the learnings? And take that with you for the next campaign. That's the resilience you need. It's not, falling into a pit and being like, oh, I'm terrible at my job. You're not, because there's so many factors that affect social media. It could have been at a bad time in the news world. There might have been a big cultural moment happening and, people just weren't interested in what you were doing. So I think that resilience to be able to just get back up when things aren't going as you wish is really important as well.
Jackie, you're a brilliant motivator. You have motivated me in those past 30 seconds of like, yeah, I can do it. You've grew your team from like 6 to 30. What has that been like to sort of lead a team of so many different types of creators, community managers, copywriters? There will be people listening who are in their career journey as a social media manager who eventually may want to lead a team as big as yours. What advice would you give to people to get themselves in the space of leading a social media team?
That's a good question. And I think you've really got to think about these things that I'm talking about. So you've got to practice what you preach as well. So I think when you're leading a team of that size, you've got to make a space open for these failures that I'm talking about. So, you've got to create an environment where we're like, oh, what did we do wrong? And let's have a conversation about it. Come talk to me. Like, what did you learn? What are we going to do next? And I think really setting that culture for your team is like, without a doubt, the most important thing you can do. It's like, how are you creating a safe and trusted environment, especially in a world that does move so quickly, where there's a lot of pressure, for people to be able to raise their hand and be like, oh, I think I messed this up. And not, you don't need to tear anyone down for making a mistake. You need to get together and work on a plan together on what we're going to do next. You're not in it on your own. We've got a team here. We're working together. So how can we all pull each other back up from this? And it is those, facilitating that conversation as a leader, because people can feel uncomfortable to speak up sometimes, right? And you need to initiate those conversations to be able to create that space that people feel comfortable to come and talk to you as well, because that's just the way that people thrive, right? It's like makes a much more productive team if they feel safe and comfortable to speak up when things aren't going great. It's not just about being, celebrating the big wins. You've got to have time to talk about the things that weren't going that well as well. So I think putting those cadences in place and those conversations has been one of the most important things that I did when we had a team of that scale, just to provide a real open forum for everyone to talk and discuss the things that they need to.
How would you summarize your social media journey from where you started as a junior account exec to now?
Yeah, I mean, it's been wild. I mean, there's been a lot of learnings, and I think I feel really privileged to have worked in, for example, a small digital agency to then going to a startup, which is now a big company, right? We're moving into big company territory now. And I think for me, it's just been an amazing experience, an exciting experience, just to really be able to look at social media, but then, move that into community as well and think about how social media can transform into community and how you then build social media communities to really support your goals. Because I guess when I started out, wasn't really a huge focus at that point, community. And I think what's been a real great experience is being able to set up a lot of that from real early foundations, right? Set up some new communities or grow ones that existed to the stage that they're at now, where I hand them over because, Canva's growing so quickly. Another part of it is that you have to give stuff away. I can't be looking after everything forever. So it's been really amazing to grow something, nurture it, and then pass it on to someone else for them to go and take and look after as well. So I think, it's been a great mix of experiences. And I think you just can't put a price on experience and doing different things in different places because you learn so much at a lot quicker rate. I think if I'd stayed in agency, I wouldn't have all of these learnings maybe that I have now working on, a client side, for example.
Do you think that that's quite a UK thing to be kind of going like that flip between agency to in-house? Does that happen quite a lot in the UK, or is that also quite happening a lot in Australia as well?
I think a lot of people go client side and then stay client side. That's what I've realized. I don't know if people go back and forth very much. I think you either start in client, you might do a graduate program and you get into a big business and you kind of then stay client side, or, you start out in agency. And I think it's a really good experience to start in agency just because of the wide range of experience that you get, working with a range of different clients and a range of different industries. When you're going to client side, you're committing to an industry, aren't you? It's very, very different. So I think, both have their perks. And I've just seen a lot of people start in agency and then go client side. I don't know if that's a trend at all, but it's just what I've seen happen.
So Canva is a graphic design platform. It's obviously grown so much in the last 3 years. Where do you see the future of your industry within social media?
I guess in the world of design, well, I mean, I feel like everyone will be using Canva at that time. And I think for this industry, the design industry, it is really thinking about how we can really position ourselves at the forefront of that trend, right? How can we really, really be known for being a really world-class design platform? And, we want it to be for everyone, right? It could be for designers, we're not, designers, it's just a quicker way for them to design, and I think we really want to make sure that over the next few years that is the positioning that, we're putting out there, is that Canva is accessible for anyone to achieve their goals. It doesn't matter who you are, what industry you're in, what job you do, there's a role for it, right? So, for a personal thing, you might be creating invitations, doing posters, doing a weekly planner. There are so many different things that Canva can be used for. I think we really, really want to get that positioning out there into the world that it is for everyone. And when I say everyone, the next stage is localizing that, right? So it's taking everything we've done globally and then in each of the different markets that we'll be going into, really thinking about what's Canva's positioning there and how can we make sure that design is accessible to every country in the world as well.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. That's the end of our main interview. Jackie, you've flooded my brain with so much information and skills and knowledge, and I can see why, honestly, can just see why Canva has been doing so well with someone like you in the helm of leading their social. So we have our quick fire round now. Jackie, are you ready?
Am I?
I hope you are. Dark mode or light mode?
Light mode.
If you could run anybody's social media account except for Canva's, whose would it be?
Innocent.
Is live audio here to stay?
Yes.
If you could bring any social media platform back to life, which would it be?
MySpace.
R.I.P. MySpace. What is your favourite TikTok meme?
It's a cat that looks really old and they hold it all the time and dress it in different outfits.
Thank you so much for Jackie joining us on Confessions of a Social Media Manager with Agora Polls. Jackie, where can people find you?
You can follow me on LinkedIn at Jackie Barker, but also follow Canva and then Canva Life, which is our Instagram account, which is about our employer brand, which is going to have a lot of exciting new things on there. So make sure that you check it out.